Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video. I wanted to do an experiment for the best way to take down a Dark Pal, and we're going to be using Xenolord Liberal Ultra as a test. And the matchup is going to be 5 Xenolords with Airblade, their unique Cosmic Meteor skill, and Beam Slicer, up against the Jetragons with the same build. So the Jetragons have also Airblade and also have Beam Slicer, except that instead of Cosmic Meteor, they have their Beam Comet attack. So the reason I wanted to do this experiment, and I only did it two times per pal, so it's not conclusive, but the results were pretty good either way. In both cases, the Jetragons were faster to get her to the second phase, which is what we're benchmarking here since she's in Dark Element for the entirety of the first phase. And I really wanted to just get a good idea of what unique skill is better at taking down Dark Pals, specifically because these two skills have a lot in common. They both track their targets, so they're good anti-air. And I wanted to do this more for me to know if we need to counter a target that flies or is in the air or hovers or is not really vulnerable to Holy Burst, what kind of skills are better against it. So that's why I wanted to do this. And we have to talk about a couple of nuances between Xenolord and Jetragon. So obviously they're both dragons. Their unique skills are very, very similar. Xenolord's special technically has higher DPS, but what really puts Jetragon over the edge is that Jetragon is a pure dragon attacker. It's not a hybrid. So in the case of Xenolord, if you see his default attack there, they use the default dark attack. So obviously when you're fighting a Dark Pal, your default dark attack is going to deal reduced damage, right? Because you're doing dark against dark. So it's like a third less effective. And even though their two unique skills are comparable, what puts Jetragon over the edge is the fact that it is a pure dark attacker. So its default attack is actually a dragon type, which is very helpful because it's getting a 50% increase against dark. So in these tests that you're going to see here on video, that is what really puts Jetragon over the edge. And then the other thing I noticed, which was pretty interesting, is that the Jetragons actually took a little more damage. I'm not 100% on this, but I believe their hitbox is not quite as good against the stuff that Xenolord does. So the builds that they're using are really, really similar. The issue with Xenolord is that it cannot get Legend. So what I did is I gave these 5 Diamond Body, Serenity, Musclehead, and Demon God, while the Jetragons have Legend, Demon God, Diamond Body, and Serenity. So both builds have Diamond Body, and even though Jetragon is not using Musclehead, it's using Diamond Body as well, so that the matchup is more fair. Even though it's got higher attack also, it's still got a faster time. So I tried to make them closer, as close as possible to each other, the two builds, and Jetragon was still faster. Even though Jetragon could get even further ahead against a Dark Pal using Musclehead as opposed to a Diamond Body, obviously. But I wanted to do Diamond Body on these just to get a comparison. Jetragon's defense isn't really great compared to Xenolord. Xenolord, I believe, is a bit higher. And the fact that Diamond Body is a really good idea on Xenolord, since it cannot get Legend, kind of puts it over the top. And the extra defense really helped the Xenolords here. They barely took any damage. Jetragon took more. But offensively, against a Dark Pal, if you just want to go all-out offense, Jetragon's going to come out ahead. And you're going to see here that the Xenolords got Bellinor down to the second phase in roughly 5-ish minutes, 5 to 5.5. And the Jetragons all got there consistently around the 4-minute benchmark. Both times I tried it. You can do the test yourself if you want, but I'm pretty sure that what's putting Jetragon over the top, as on top of the extra attack, is really the fact that its default attack is Dragon. So that really, really helps. Again, we're not sure what we're going to get in the future, but it's good to know and to have this on hand in case you need to counter a Dark Pal, especially a flying Dark Pal or a high mobility Dark Pal, that Jetragon is going to be a bit better at it, even though its special is not as good. The reason I wanted to include Airblade and Beam Slicer here is because obviously in a real raid situation or a real combat situation, you're not really going to limit yourself to one skill. That's why they're both using the same secondary and tertiary skills. But yeah, it's interesting to see here that they keep releasing pals that are really, really similar to each other, but the differences are actually quite pronounced based on the typing. Important to remember here excuse me, that a a PAL that has a hybrid typing won't always have the attack that you want. So for example, let's say you have something like Jormuntide Ignis or Zerk. Well, they have a secondary type, right? Even though they will do a dragon attack, they do have a secondary attack of fire, secondary attack typing of fire, excuse me. So it doesn't really mean that you're going to be able to do fire damage with the basic attack. So important consideration there. Astegon is in a similar boat. I believe Astegon has that advantage over Xenolord. I have to go back and check, but I believe Astegon's primary damage is actually dragon and not dark. So it's an important consideration there, depending on what you're targeting. That Xenolord is kind of in a weird spot. Now that said, even though Jetragon came out ahead for this, I really don't feel too happy with the fact that Jetragon's defense stat is so low. Their hitbox is not too great, honestly. If this was like a real current raid, it would be quite dangerous. And also, we have to take into consideration the fact that Xenolord's attack gets it over the air. So Xenolord with Diamond Body is going to be a little more survivable than Jetragon with Diamond Body, I believe, in an actual raid situation. So the conclusion of this experiment, for me, is going to be that if you want all-out defense against a Dark Pal, Jetragon's going to be better at it. Also, that goes without mentioning that Jetragon can get Meteor Rain for an overworld situation is just better. However, in a raid situation where survivability might matter a bit more, Xenolord's going to be better at it. And also, one important caveat here, Xenolord combos really well with Rock Burst. Again, that's not going to be too relevant if we face a floating Pal. But Xenolord, Cosmic Meteor has a higher cooldown than Rock Burst, and typically they do the Rock Burst right after if you don't have a move that has a cooldown in between those two. So there are some interesting combos that Xenolord has because its special is so unique that it gets it out of harm's way. My opinion, use either one, but it's important to get this stuff into consideration. If you're facing an AoE situation, then obviously Jetragon comes out ahead because of Meteor Rain, right? Which is not being tested here. But the conclusion is going to be that if you want a anti-Dark Pal that is a little more survivable, Xenolord is going to be it. And if you want one that is pure offensive and or it's dealing with multiple Dark Pals, then Jetragon is going to be better. So you have to take your pick. It's interesting that the game is shaping in a direction where little differences like this do matter, right? Cosmic Meteor is good in an AoE situation, but not as good as Meteor Rain, obviously. Having access to Meteor Rain is very, very good. Maybe in the future we'll get a skill fruit with Meteor Rain on it, and we'll be able to teach it to different pals. That would be cool. And in that case, I think I would, it's going to be much closer between the two of them. But as it stands right now, if I were to face a dark type raid boss, you can use whichever. But the more numerically advantageous method might be Jetragon with Diamond Body. I would definitely give them Diamond Body. I mean, it's just, I know what happens when a current raid releases, and it's typically never good for the existing pals, a lot of incoming damage. So Jetragon's hitbox is not too great. They do float, but they're not really that high up off the ground, so they get killed by a lot of stuff. And they don't have Cosmic Meteor to help them survive a bit. So, but yeah, that's the experiment I wanted to run. I hope you guys enjoyed the discussion. And as always, please let me know your comments and your thoughts and whether you agree or disagree with the results of the test. And let me know what you think is the best counter to a Dark Pal. As always, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys on the next one.